I'd like to address the order of the portions of the Torah. Under what principles do we decide whether to have a combined parsha, whether to break it up? How does that whole system of the parshas work? Because it turns out that this week's parsha, Bamidbar, is always right before Shavuot. And that's one of the fixed rules. There is the portion of Bamidbar just before Shavuot. There is the portion of Dvarim just before Tisha B'Av. There is the portion of Ha'azinu, or Nitzavim Vayelech, immediately before Rosh Hashanah. Everything else kind of fits in between and expands and contracts to fit those spaces. So let's understand the rule of having this parsha of Bamidbar immediately before Shavuot. And the Shulchan Aruch expresses it in the following way: Minu ve'itzru. Now, what is that? Menu means to count, as in you can see the word minyan hiding there. So that's to count. And that is, of course, the book of Numbers that we're going to begin on Shabbos. Count, because it has got the census of the Bnei Israel over and over and over, counting it this way and that way, 20 to 60, in their tribes, also in their flags and their configurations as the way they count. Tribe of Levi counted separately, a census for military, census for the redemption of the firstborn. There are many counts just in this parsha, and then this is Itzru from the word Atzeret, which is another name for Shavuot. So Shulchan Aruch gives us the rule: always do the count, that's begin the book of Numbers, and then celebrate Shavuot right afterwards. What is the connection and the juxtaposition? Well, I'm going to approach it from a number of angles. Firstly, last week, we had a very difficult portion of the Torah, very difficult section to read in the last portion of Vayikra, Bechukotai. It's the Tochacha, or the rebuke, for several minutes, the Balkara, in an undertone, read to us the consequences of lack of following the laws of the Torah. It begins in Bechukai Telecho, if you follow our commandments, and then there's a long list of blessings. But the converse is difficult to swallow. It's far more explicit, and those are called the Tochacha. And that is timed to be ahead of Shavuot. That is time to be in preparation for Shavuot. So it's a major event, receiving of the Torah, which we're going to relive next week. And in preparation for that, the week before, we go through this kind of purification, mikveh by fire. And that kind of is very sobering, and it's a reminder of the responsibility that we have. And so it's read every year before Shavuot. However, it is very harsh and very sobering, and maybe not a good way to go into Yom Tov. So the way the calendar was set up of the Parshas is that we go straight from last week's Parsha. There's always a break of 1 week, Bamidbar, and then we go into Shavuot. So that is the timing of the various portions, even though Bechukotai from last week is a preparation for Shavuot, but we want to get a chance to catch our breath and compose ourselves again before we go into Yom Tov, having gone through that very harsh experience of having heard the Tochacha read in Shul last week. So that would explain why we have that juxtaposition with the break and what that portion of Bamidbar serves. It serves as a buffer, but it's more than that, and it really has to do with the meaning of the parsha. although I refer to it as the book of Numbers, Minyan, the count, of course, Bamidbar means in the desert. And let's see if there's a connection between in the desert and Shavuot. Well, obviously there is, because Shavuot, we celebrate the giving of the Torah that happened on Mount Sinai, which happens to be situated in the Sinai desert. And in fact, that's how the Parsha begins. Parsha begins with the words, Hashem spoke to Moshe, Bamidbar Sinai, in the desert of Sinai. That's how the Parsha, or the book of Bamidbar, begins. And there's got to be some kind of a connection between the theme, Bamidbar, the desert, and the receiving of the Torah that follows in the days thereafter. So there is a medrash. It's a lengthy medrash. I've kind of cut out some of the salient verses of the medrash, passages, rather, that explain why the revelation at Sinai actually happened there, of all places. Why on Har Sinai, in the middle of a desert, it would seem that the correct place to have a revelation of that importance would be, if we could choose a place, we'd probably all say Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, the Holy Land. After all, this was the most intense close-up and personal experience that we had connecting with Hashem. And shouldn't that happen in the holiest place on earth? Shouldn't it happen in the place where we say that's where the Even Shetia, where the stone of foundation was placed? It's the place where, the creation of the world emanated from. It's there that man was created. It's the highest place spiritually in the world. So that we talk about making aliyah to Israel and making yeridah. If you come from there, even though geographically, there are mountains far higher than the Judean hills. So it would seem that is kind of the appropriate place where this covenant should have taken place, where the revelation should have taken place. Why not there? So the Medrash addresses that with the following words. The Medrash says, if there is a dispute between the tribes, so no one should say the Torah was given in my land. One tribe will say it's my land, the other one will say no, it was given. So in order to ensure that it didn't end up connected with one tribe more than another, so the Torah was given in a public, ownerless location. Does the Torah belong more to any one group than to another? Is it connected with any geographical location? It isn't. So the Torah is actually everybody's and everywhere. In modern times, very interesting. In the secular Israeli society, you will often hear the argument that the Torah, mitzvot, that's for diaspora Jews. The diaspora Jews, they have to have Torah mitzvot because that's going to strengthen our national identity, our Jewish identity. In order to demonstrate that we are Jews and to remain Jews, we have to have ritual. However, you live in the land of Israel, you're connected as nationalist Jews, a nationalistic Jew who's connected with the Holy Land. There's no need to actually observe ritual. So that's kind of a favorite line. The other one that you hear is from religious Jews in Israel. And they love to quote the Medrash that says, real mitzvot are observed in the Holy Land. Everything else is kind of just chop, it's play, it's practice, which is there's a medrash that goes along those lines, but it's a little bit of a twist of a misinterpretation. It's we oblige to observe mitzvot here, and they're real, but of course it's at a totally different level when observed in Eretz Israel. And ideally, we should all be there and perform mitzvot there in the ideal conditions. So, people start associating today, 2023, the observance of mitzvot, the connection of Torah with particular geographical locations. So we don't even know where it was given. Had it been given in Jerusalem? Well, Jerusalem is kind of straddles two tribes, there's Benjamin and there's Judah. So it would have been somewhere there. In fact, the provincial or the tribal line runs right through Table Mount, so that part of even that earliest place is at least divided between two tribes. But then there's also the argument that Jerusalem itself doesn't belong to any tribe at all. It's kind of tribeless or not involved in that division, be it as it may. The Torah is not given anywhere in Eretz Israel because that way there is no connection with anybody. And in fact, by being given in the desert, and even in the desert, exact location of Mount Sinai is unknown. Okay, there is, I think we spoke about this, we had a discussion about this a couple of years ago, but there's debate as to whether that mountain, known as Mount Sinai in the Sinai Desert, is actually the location where the Torah was given, or if it's actually miles from there. It's a pretty tall mountain that takes hours and hours to trek up, and that kind of rules it out as the real Mount Sinai. Peter has made the fact that we don't even know where the Torah was given kind of makes it transcend geographical boundaries, and so it's for everyone everywhere. In fact, the fact that it wasn't given in our land makes it universal in a sense. And there's so many universal values to the Torah. And there are many sections and discussions in the Talmud about, what's the Gentiles' role? And of course, they've got 7 Noach laws, Shalom Mitzvot B'nei Noach. But they cannot say we have, no part in the values that the Torah has shared with the world, because it wasn't given in our land. It was given in a Jew's land, not so. It was given in an ownerless desert indeed. The Medrash continues. Furthermore, says the Medrash, why in the wilderness? And from here, the sages taught that the Torah was given through 3 things: fire, water, and midbar, and wilderness. And the Medrash then goes on to substantiate it through fire, and that description of the covenant, and Mount Sinai is covered in smoke, so that's fire. Hashem had come down upon it in fire. Water, that's a verse in Judges that describes the covenant. The heavens dripped and the clouds dripped water. That's at Sinai from the context, and of course desert, as we know, and God spoke to Moses in the Sinai wilderness. So those 3 elements, what do they have in common? They have in common that they're readily available and free. And why is the Torah given through these 3 things? These are free to the inhabitants of the world, so too are the words of Torah free to them, and substantiated by the words in Isaiah, "Oh, all who are thirsty, come for water, even if you have no money." Those are the words of the prophet Yeshaya. So I think that Johannesburg Water hasn't got the memo. If somebody wants to just report this on their website and just refer them to Isaiah 55. I think they are ripping us off, as water clearly says should be free. Torah is compared to water, is compared to fire, is connected with a wilderness, and that's the idea that it's there for all to take, and you don't need to have any specific qualification, belong to a particular group, be connected with a particular family. It's absolutely there for all to kind of come and pick it up. It talks about the crown in Pirkei Avot, the crown of kahuna, and the crown of kingship, and then it says this Keter Torah is munach. It's there for the taking. Obviously, you have to involve yourself. You have to toil. You have to work. You have to be involved in Torah, but it's there for the taking. It's open for everybody, and that's the idea of the desert. Those are the other two elements that it mentions, of course, fire and the water. And one could have a lengthy discussion about each of these individual elements. But then the Medrash continues. There's another dimension to desert, and that is that one has to make himself ownerless, just like the wilderness doesn't belong to any specific individual. It's kind of there's no property there. It's just a wilderness. In order to be able to connect with Torah and acquire the wisdom of Torah, one has to make himself or herself ownerless. Concept of bitul, of self effacement, of kind of drawing yourself back in order to be able to receive Torah. As we had before the comparison to water. So the Gemara says water always goes to the lowest place. If you're looking for Torah, you've got to be low down, and that's where you're going to get Torah. If you raise yourself, you're not going to get Torah. That takes me back to Mount Sinai. There in the desert, it says that Hashem gave the Torah there. The famous Medrash says that Hashem was looking for the correct venue to give the Torah. Various mountains nominated themselves because of their great, height, etc. And Hashem chooses Mount Sinai because it is, a low mountain, and that's why, the theory that it's a very tall mountain in the Sinai Desert is likely incorrect. So why is the Torah given in a low place? Not on the ground. You got to raise yourself a little bit from the earth, but not way up there, but actually the idea of humility, and that allows you to absorb Torah and to receive it. Any pursuit of knowledge implies that you have to lower yourself in order to be able to absorb knowledge. You have to kind of set aside your own thoughts and your own opinions and be ready to absorb. The process of learning from a teacher is the acceptance that the teacher is superior to you in his knowledge and his grasp of the material, and as such, you're going to open up your mind by not walking in there arrogantly, sitting in the front row of the lecture hall saying, aha, what do you think you have to teach me about this subject? I think I know everything there is to know about. And if that's the attitude of a pupil who walks into a lecture hall, then the teacher is not going to be successful in imparting any knowledge, because what stands in the way is the arrogance of the student who is not receptive. So that's true in any learning situation, that you have to set aside that arrogance, in fact, set aside all of these preconceived notions. That's the desert, where there's no shape, there's no form, there's nothing, nothing has been cultivated, nothing, and it's lowly. And it's more important when it comes to Torah than any other form of knowledge, because with Torah, not only have to acknowledge the superior knowledge of the teacher. If you're learning from a teacher, you also have to acknowledge the superiority of the author of the Torah. You have to accept that the source of Torah is divine, that the source of Torah is from an infinite source. And that requires humility, to accept that the Torah actually comes from a power that is infinitely greater than ours, and that as much as we're going to, dig in it and get involved in it, we're never going to be able to grasp the totality of it. The more we know, the more there will be that we still have to discover and learn and know. So that is why humility is so important. And we actually acknowledge this in the Amidah. This is in the final passage at the end of the Amidah. Okay, let's go in the wrong order of the slides. These are words that we say in the final passage of the Amidah and the Kainat Tzor, and we say there, may my soul be like dust to all, open my heart to you, Torah. So if arrogance is going to be in the way, and we're not going to be humble, then we're not going to be receptive to Torah. And so it's that little 2-line prayer said 3 times a day, Shacharit, Mincha, Ma'ariv, in the final passage of the Amidah, where we say, Hashem, may my soul be like dust, also that I'll be receptive to Torah. And the other text I want to share with you is actually a Talmud in Eruvin, if not a mistake, that says clearly, if a person makes himself humble, like wilderness, which is open to all, upon which everyone treads, his Torah study will endure and be given to him as a gift, and if not, his Torah study will not endure. And this is actually on the verse in the Torah where it says, Midbar Matana. And from Midbar they went to Matana, so Midbar is desert, and Matana is gift. And if you make yourself like a desert, then your Torah is going to be a gift to you. You're going to be able to endure, but conversely, if not, then you're not going to be able to receive Torah in a proper way. There is a famous comment of Rashi that's always referred to this time of year. It's when the Jews arrive at Mount Sinai, and it says, they camped in the desert, but then it says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Israel encamped, and it doesn't say Vayachanu, but Vayichan, that's a singular. Vayachanu is they camped, Vayichan is he camped. And Rashi's comment is, as one man with one mind, and that's why it's a singular, it's like one person. There was a unity of spirit, there was a unity of desire, unlike in other places where unfortunately there was dissension and the lack. What brings about a unity in the community? Humility. If each person stands their ground and wants to prevail with their approach, with their opinion, then everyone's stepping on everyone's toes, and you get the opposite of unity. If everyone is prepared to step back, to step down from their own preconceived notions, approaches, and then you can have unity, because then everyone can come together and say, we're going to overlook differences because we've got a common purpose. And when the Jews arrived at Mount Sinai, there was that, and that's what they were able to receive Torah. They said, look, we may all be different, we have different longings and desires, and as Rashi says in previous encampments, well, it wasn't so but now this is the real deal. We have Mount Sinai, we're receiving the Torah, and we want to all focus on the same desire, so we're going to overlook our differences so we can make that happen. And that created the receptive humility to be able to get the Torah properly. And then there is a final dimension to desert, and that is that the formation of our people, not the once-off Mount Sinai experience, but the really birth of a nation as a people happened in the desert. Not just that one day, but for the next 40 years. Because for 40 years, we're in the desert. And during that time, we grew spiritually. And Interesting. The generation of the desert is referred to with the words the Dor De'ah, or the generation of knowledge, as opposed to us who believe in God. They knew God. How do you know God? You know God when you experience Him on a daily basis on the Nile wave. That was a generation that survived in the desert, where human survival is not possible if not for Hashem's immediate and open providence. So those are people who experienced survival in inhospitable, uninhabitable land, but there was clouds of glory to shelter them from the elements. There was the water from the well of Miriam. There was daily supply, at least 6 days a week, of manna for them to be fed, and they lived absolutely miraculously. And when you're exposed to that day in, day out, that strengthens your appreciation, not faith, but knowledge of Hashem. And that was very important before they could go out into Mount Sinai. They were living in a sort of animated, abnormal world where they could devote themselves totally to spiritual growth, because there was not a physical challenge of any kind. Food sustenance, enemies, all that was taken care of by the three miracles that I mentioned, the clouds, the well, and the manna. So they could kind of devote themselves to complete immersion in study of Torah, total growth in the spiritual, let's get closer and closer to God. And in fact, when the 40 years ended, there was a serious movement to say, let's not go into Israel. Let's remain here. Israel was the end of this suspended animation of this miraculous kind of messianic age where everything is taken care of for us. And the spies, 10 of them, who advocated for staying in the desert, very well may have been motivated by that desire to remain there in the desert and to continue living that spiritual. Okay, that's not the plan. The plan was for us to live in the real world, interact in the real world, but we needed that preparation. It's interesting because it wasn't plan A. Plan A was we get the Torah, and within days we are in Israel. That was plan A. But of course, something went wrong because the Jews asked for spies. Spies went, and they said, no, this is good, and the land is good, but we don't want to go there. 40 years later, they were only ready to go. So this wasn't plan A. This was plan B. But sometimes there's an advantage to plan B. Quick illustration: the tablets. The first receiving of the Torah was plan A, and then there was idolatry, and Moses broke the tablets, and then we got the second set. And we told that the value of the second set of Luchot was intensely superior to the first, that there was far more knowledge concentrated in the second Luchot than the first Luchot. It's akin to the Baal Tshuva versus the one who's never sinned. The Baal Tshuva who's erred and picked up from his mistake and strengthened his faith and his behavior, is at a better level than the tzaddik who has never, made that same mistake. So this is same thing with the desert. It wasn't plan A. Plan A was that they were going straight into Israel. They would have lacked, we would have lacked as a nation, that injection of a Dor De'ah. And I'll leave you with this final quote, which is from the book of Devarim, which Moshe says to them at the end of 40 years. He says, God only gave you a heart to know, leiv ladat. So they always spoke about treasure of knowledge, eyes to see and ears to hear until today. This is 40 years down the line, and now you finally developed that appreciation and that understanding of what of understanding Hashem. So that is where the desert has a very important role, not just as the venue for the initial revelation, but in fact for the 40 years that were the formative years that injected us with a faith in God that is become now an inheritance. So we say that we are today ma'aminim bnei ma'aminim, or believers, sons of believers, and that goes all the way back to that injection of 40 years worth of faith. Thank you, and have a wonderful week. Good Yom Tov. We will not have a shiur next week, so we'll resume in 2 weeks. Please go.